There are three major expenses that can cripple you financially and cause hardship throughout your life. Number one is having a child. The U.S. government estimates say that it costs about $250,000 to raise a child from 0 to 18. So, encompassed in that cost of raising a child from the ages of 0 to 18 is the housing cost. The number two major expense that will cripple you financially is having a house, owning a house. So the reason there's the number one expense is having a child is because the bigger your family, the bigger house you may need, and therefore the more expenses. And the number three major expense in your lifetime is your vehicle, your car. But for this video, we're going to focus on a tiny house and three things to consider. I had to lay the foundation of what the top three expenses are in people's life and how the number one is the size of their family, basically. And then the number two is their housing cost. Why is that important? Because money, while not God, while it should not be worshipped, money creates a lifestyle. The more you need to support your family, the more you have to work, and the more your lifestyle is altered because of what you have created. When you create expenses, whether it's having a child, having a house, having a car, you create bills. And therefore, you have to create income to pay off those bills. So you may have to get a job you don't like, you may have to get two jobs you don't like, and you may spend time away from your family. Your expenses created a need to go out there and get income to pay your expenses, and now it has created the way you live. The majority of your life will be spent supporting a lifestyle that you create. So the three things you need to consider when you're looking at a tiny house, because you say, well, I want to live in a situation where my bills aren't that expensive so that I can have more time and more resources to myself and maybe to my family. The number one thing you need to consider when you're buying a tiny home is restrictions. A tiny home is considered 400 square feet or under. I believe that each individual person needs 250 square feet to have safe and healthy boundaries. So if you had a household of two people, I believe you'd want 500 square feet. And if you had a married couple and one child, I believe you'd want 750 square feet. For every person in a house, you should estimate that they need 250 square feet, a door to close them off so they have their own personal space and personal boundaries. Now, it's true that they don't make many houses in America, new ones anymore, that are under 1,000 square feet. But a tiny home, the maximum square footage that's considered a tiny home, 400 square feet, technically, based on my calculations, you should only put one or two people in that household. That's very important for several reasons I'm going to explain. Number one is, then whoever's going to buy a tiny house has to be single, an empty nester, or a very odd person in society. The average person in society in America is married with two kids. That's four people. Four people fitting in 400 square feet would not be a healthy place for healthy boundaries, in my opinion. So now you have either very elderly people that are empty nesters and that aren't going to be able to entertain family too much because there's not that much room, or very young single people. The vast majority in the middle, because mainly people who buy houses are usually between 25 to 60. They're going to raise a family and they're going to live in that area, go to a school in that area, etc. So why that matters is because one is it may not fit you, and two is when you go to resell it, you don't have a big pool of buyers. So while it may be attractive to buy a cheap house, you have to understand financially it may not be worth it if you have an idea that you may not live there forever. And very few people buy a house and live there forever because it may be cheaper to rent, or it may make sense to not It just may make sense not to commit to a tiny house because there's not that many people when it comes down to it that are really in that small niche of 400 square foot or under that are going to buy a house, especially being that most people that buy a house have a family. Very little upside for a single or elderly person to buy a house because you only make money on a house when you sell a house. You know, like if you bought a house for $10,000 and then tomorrow it's worth $100,000. That's great on paper, makes you feel wealthier, but you don't actually get that money. You don't realize the profit until you sell it. And then when you sell it and get that profit, what are you going to do with it? So the other thing is, because there are restrictions around building a house under 500 square feet, where is that house going to be located? Usually in the countryside, in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by other unrestricted land. So now chances are you're not going to be in a good school system. There's probably not going to be that many good hospitals around. You're probably not going to be by beach. Maybe you'd be by mountains, but you're going to be isolated from some areas, some amenities that you may need: supermarkets, shops, entertainment. Now you may not care and you may have a dream of living in the middle of nowhere, but you have to give thought day in, day out for months and years of you being isolated, driving maybe, a half hour or 45 minutes to a Walmart or to a doctor's office or to somewhere that you need in order to get the items for your life. And that does matter because that will wear on you driving that much and being isolated from facilities. And two is, again, if you are buying property on unrestricted land, that usually means your neighbors are buying property on unrestricted land. Why does that matter? Your neighbors can therefore raise chickens, drive four-wheelers, maybe do like range shooting. If your land is unrestricted, that pretty much means you can do just about whatever you want with your land. You can build a tiny home, you can put an RV, etc. And so your neighbors, they can do the same thing, but maybe your neighbors aren't thinking about, I want to build a little tiny home and just have a quiet, peaceful life. Maybe they're thinking, I want to raise chickens, I want to have 4 pit bulls, I want to drive my four-wheeler off-road, I want to do range shooting. So you are in an environment of unrestricted land, and you have people that have different visions for what unrestricted land is. And if you buy just in like a tiny home community, that's a unique situation, and you have to be careful of what type of community that is and how close you live to your neighbors. And, at the end of the day, what you really need to consider is location. You got the restrictions issue, you got the resale value that may not be that high, and then you got the location. Why does location matter? Because everything in real estate, or a big percentage of the value of real estate, is in location. For resale, yes, which we talked about. Also for quality of life, which we kind of talked about, driving everywhere. And 3 is, just what gives it value. And how you want to live. And after you consider certain things, you have to ask yourself, is there value in a tiny house? Or are you maybe better off just renting? Maybe better off RVing? It's something that you have to consider. But a tiny home is not just a give me quick solution to a better life. Not after you go through the series of thoughts that I just laid out to you. And so give some thoughts. Leave a comment below on your journey. Because I looked at tiny homes when I sold I had about 1,000 square foot condo. I sold it 3 years ago. I looked at a tiny home. But after the restrictions and all the things I mentioned in this video, I said, that's not worth it unless you can really find a unique scenario. And there's always exceptions. And that's why I just figured, I'll live in my car, maybe look for an RV lot in Florida by the beach. And that's what's kind of gotten me on this journey. But I've been very cautious to commit because I see a lot of pitfalls now that I'm older and mature, and looking beyond just the initial high of, this is cute and tiny. That's good, but look at the logistics, and look at the restrictions, and look at the neighborhood, and look at your future, and look at how your day-in-day life would be in that area. Hopefully this video helped. If it did, I appreciate if you click the thumbs up. Also consider joining the channel by clicking that blue join button. That will give you unlimited access to my live chats. Every night on this YouTube channel, I go live. And on Sunday, I'm starting member-only chats. We'll expand that as we go. You'll also be giving a membership badge and some unique membership emojis. You can check out my playlist on the Nomad Life. And again, thank you for watching. Appreciate that. See you guys in the next one. Peace and love.